Imperialism around the world from mid-1800s to 1914. We call this time New Imperialism. Now you might remember from ninth grade the old imperialism. Christopher Columbus, the conquistadors, the Aztecs, the Mayas. Basically when Europe populated and took over North and South America. Well, now we're talking about the Europeans spreading out and going into Africa, India, and China and Asia. Imperialism is the domination of one country or political, economic, or cultural life of another. Basically, the mama country, in this case, mostly European, Britain, France, dominating the weaker baby country, such as China, India, or areas of Africa. Old imperialism from the 1500s to the 1800s is when the European nations established colonies in the Americas, Indias, and Southeast Asia. They gained territory in some areas of Africa, China, and North and South America. New imperialism is from 1870 to 1914. This is when nationalism was in full swing, and many of the countries were strong nation states, and they were in search of raw materials and new markets, meaning new places to sell their goods. The industrialized nations of Europe wanted to spread out and make more money and get more raw materials so they can make more things. It was all about the cash. The US and Japan even got in it and began to expand to areas all around the world. There were many causes of imperialism. The first one was nationalism and social Darwinism. This is when imperialists felt they had the right to take control of countries they viewed as being weaker. Here you have a picture, and it shows you, this is literally from a history book, where they believed that, other races literally came from other animals. This helped breed a whole idea of racism and social Darwinism. Both nationalism and social Darwinism promoted national superiority. The European countries felt they were better than everyone else, and also survival of the fittest. You see this in a lot of the nature films, where the strong animal has the right to take out the weaker animal. Well, they took it as the strong nations should dominate and take care of the weaker ones. This is a very famous political cartoon you'll look at later in the unit, and it shows you the sleeping giant of China and all the European countries around it ready to pounce when it wakes up. There was a lot of military motives. With the invention of the steam engine, more and more countries were getting very large navies, and they needed places to be able to have their naval ships stop and get more goods, and more importantly, get more fuel. So a lot of them needed, especially Great Britain, they needed to have lots of islands or coastal areas where they could stop their naval ships, be able to get goods on them, more food, and of course more fuel. Military power was a way to promote a nation's goal, and they wanted their military all over the world. Wherever your military is, you're not going to have any problems with the natives fighting back. Colonies were important basis for resupplying ships, and a nation has many colonies, has many power and security. And you can see here in this map, the red this is all the British Empire in the 1910s and 20s. And, the saying used to be that the sun never sets on the British Empire, and that was because it literally didn't. When the sun was setting maybe in Canada, the sun was rising in Australia and Southeast Asia. So the sun never did set on the British Empire because they owned land all around the world, and you can see here on all the continents except for Antarctica. Another motive was the money. And we've talked about how it's all about the money. The imperialist countries needed the raw materials to supply their factories, and they needed foreign markets to sell their finished products. They needed places to invest their profits, and the colonies could provide all of these things. And you also have what we call the white man's burden. White man's burden was a very famous poem written by Rudyard Kipling. Okay, he was a British author. You might have heard of his other stories. Rikki Tikki Tavi is a very famous one. The Jungle Book. He lived in India, and he believed that England had the right and had to go invade India, China, Africa, to help take care of the people who live there because they could not take care of themselves. Kipling expressed the idea that white imperialists had a moral duty to educate people in nations they considered less developed. This is a very weak cartoon, but it shows you the white man's burden, and this is literally a white European, explorer, and he's carrying an African native up to the schoolhouse because the African can't walk there. He doesn't want to go to school, and they're saying that, that was the Europeans' job to educate the Africans, Asians, and Indians. The missionaries also went there and spread their, Christianity, and they didn't have a choice on it. They had, they must spread the religion, and if you didn't want to pray like they prayed, it didn't matter because they were going to make you. These were all important causes of world imperialism in the 18 and early 1900s.